Good evening. Thank you for joining for today's talk about Family Office, Global Choice Singapore. 2 weeks back, I spoke about artificial intelligence, the game changer. The response was very good, and I'm planning to go for a second talk in February about same artificial intelligence version 2. The intention is that I keep on reading more and more and interesting things. I thought I should put it as number 2 so that share the knowledge and information with all of you. The family office, I spoke earlier. I also went to Sri Lanka to speak with the National Development Bank of Sri Lanka to their high net worth customers. So the concept is new to them. But anyway, I will try to explain in detail to make you understand better. I want to take this topic, Family Office Global Choice Singapore, into 3 divisions. The first one, I want to talk about what is family office and what is required to establish in Singapore. Then I move to other jurisdictions in the world like Dubai, Abu Dhabi, Malaysia, Switzerland. Then you have London, New York, and all the other countries which are trying to make people to come and to have a family office there established. The last one chapter, I talk about challenges faced by the family offices today. What is a family office? When you make small money, like $1 or $2 million, you may be a professional or you are doing business, you know how to manage the money yourself to get a better return. I also spoke about 2-3 months back, every person should have 2 sources of income. One is the earned income, active income, and passive income. Means whatever you invest out of the earnings which you have worked hard and made the earning income, you start investing wisely to get a second source of income for you. Then you try to manage yourself. Managing money is an art. You have to learn that. You have to take risk. There are calculated risks you have to take to see that you get a return for your money. When the money, same money, if you become like $10 million, $15 million or more, what happened is in Switzerland in 1800, more than 150, 200 private banks have started. They have gone globally, established their operations globally. So when they started establishing their operations globally, they start teaching people how to, they put a minimum sum like 2 million US, 3 million US and take your money, start advising you, they call relationship managers. What they do is they start advising you the portfolio. If you have your own knowledge of investing in various type of shares, in your shares, China shares or India shares, mutual funds, gold, silver, in metals, or in mutual bonds, hedge funds. So all these investments you can do with a private banker and try to get a return. Usually the private bankers have their own fees to charge on an annual basis. You pay them for the return you are going to get out of that. But whatever you earn, except Singapore, in most of the countries, it's all considered as an income and it is subject to tax. You now think you run a family business, your father or father's father, maybe 3 generations back, or you yourself have very successfully run the business, made like 200, $300 million. Usually family business, what I've seen, I'll give you the statistics later, will have ranging between $100 million to $1 billion. If you have made that money either in business, accumulated over 10 years or 15 years, or you sell your business and then start some other business. If you sell, you will always get a huge sums of money. those money also have to be invested. It belongs to, say, father and 3 sons together, put together, are running this family business. It becomes family money. So when it becomes family money, how do you manage in a family office, which is nothing but making the investments of the family money? You can certainly, if you have, say, $200 million, father and 3 children, father is always called ultimate beneficial owner, along with the sons have accumulated, say, $200 million. You start investing globally. Some of them are educated in the US, come back, the children, and they start advising you, Papa, invest in this, invest in that. They have the knowledge. Father also listen to them, including private investments. I tell you what is private investments. Private investment is nothing but putting into private companies. Some of them will be startup, and then putting the money in real estate. And private companies, we have 2 types of investment. Either you invest in an equity or give it in the form of debt. Then you have mutual fund. Then you can invest in hedge funds or funds and funds of funds. These are all called alternative investments in the financial parlor. So when you're going to invest this $200 million a family has made, then it passes on to the generation. Because the father and 3 sons, the example I'll give you, if the father demises, then the child takes over. When the son takes over, then the sons will have children. So generational wealth is kept in a family office, invested with pooled amount. It's not separated between the individual members. When I go through all my transparencies, I will show you there is a definition of what is family. Family means, in India, you call it Hindu undivided family. The same concept is used where in one family, father, sons, daughters, adopted sons, and then all the descendant of that family. So what is important? Why countries are attracting this type of $200, $300 million of family money, which they call it as family office? They give you a tax exemption. That's most important. So for 200 billion, if you're going to get a return, say for example of, if you're getting a return of 10%, you'll be getting $20 million return. For $20 million, if you take Singapore, they tax you at 17%, you take India, it's at 30%, US and other countries like 35%. So what happens is the taxation will be $7-8 million. By having a family office and following the regulations and principles of the respective countries, which you are going to talk about in chapter 2, beyond Singapore, then you start not paying the tax and accumulating the wealth in a company is called a family office. It's called a family office company. Typically in Singapore, they form 2 companies. One is where the funds are kept and managed. The 200 billion is kept into that first company. It may be called, say, if I start in my name, Mohan Family Office Private Limited, which will have the $200 million. Then it will have a Mohan Management Consultant Private Limited, which will manage the family office. So usually, typically in Singapore style, they form 2 companies. First company will make investments globally, for which will go to Monetary Authority of Singapore, which monitors all these type of family office regulations, and then come out with what are the system and process and procedures they have to comply with to get the tax exemption. Now, after you get the tax exemption, it's a succession planning also. When I say succession planning, because you have pooled your $200 million, if the father demises, automatically the 3 children will take over the shares of the father in the company. So you don't have to go and disturb the $200 million invested globally, because the money is kept in the family company. Then the succession carries on, the second generation carries on, and then if anything happens to the second generation children will take over the shares of the father and start continue to do it. So it's nothing but one, the family office income is exempted from tax. Two, succession planning. The third benefit what you get is very ruled, governed way of making investments and looking after the investments in a pooled manner. If each one invests, each one doesn't have manage their money separately. It is, you always say in India, when you have small pieces of land, agricultural land, 1 acre, 2 acres, each one has got, you don't have the mass scale of calling the mechanized way of carrying out the all the benefit you get for each one of the acres. So the same way, the benefit of pooling the $200 million of three brothers and father, whereby you start investing the money on a very professional way and a very prudent way. Usually, whenever they make the investment, they're 99%, they will go out to look for external advisors. See, in a private banking environment, you go to a private bank, the private bank will only advise you what their products are. The guys will come up their own products, they will recommend to you, ask you to buy those products. But when it comes to a family office where run by the father and three sons, and one son is educated well in finance, you can go globally and invest, and the choice is yours. Even you can outsource the professionalism in going into people and asking them to assist you in making the investment. So that advantage of going globally through an external advisor, you pay the fees for getting all the advisors. Other advantage in a family office is you can engage a lawyer, engage a accountant, qualified accountant, outsource the talent for getting the advice to make investments globally. So all these things are possible. There is no one private bank way of looking into things. So you have the opportunities to get the best out of it. The last benefit in a family office is philanthropic activities. If the family wants to make donations, they can pool the donations and then make out all the philanthropic activities, which in Singapore, the regulations allows you to do, make also overseas donations, which has been liberalized now to enable the family officers to make philanthropic donations. Previously, when they were giving tax exemptions, they were not fixed a minimum sum in Singapore. Then later on, when a lot of applications started coming, the government thought that better to fix a minimum sum. So each country, when I'm going to talk about in the second chapter about the various jurisdictions, each country started fixing a minimum sum of investment is required, qualified to make an application for tax exemption. Singapore, it is 20 million Singapore dollars. Previously, when the approvals were given by Monetary Authority of Singapore, the minimum sum was not kept. Subsequently, they made a regulation that it should be a $20 million basic investments required, and it should be maintained throughout the when the fund is in operation and when the company is in operation and the tax exemption is in force. The reason is that if it is going to come down, because if you make a bad investment and it becomes less than $20 million, you have to make good the loss by bringing in more funds into the company to see that you maintain the minimum sum. After this, as this word of family office and concept has picked up in the world, the global educational institutions like Kellogg, Wharton, Chicago, all of them have started family office courses. So make them to teach them how do you discipline yourself and run all these things. Even within the family itself, if father and three sons are going to run, the example which I was telling you, you can also have internal policies, process, and procedures. What I mean is when one of the sons says that I want to invest $5 million into a particular investment, if your internal family governance says that all should approve if any investments exceeding $2 million, everyone has to approve that. So some of the principles, guidelines, governance can be built into a family charter also. You can create a family charter and do all these things. This is all internal discipline you carry out yourself. So this is all possible in a family office. You can ask me, in Singapore, the regulation is very clear. If the money is invested in your personal name, if I make an investment in shares globally, mutual fund, and other things, there is no requirement to pay tax. It's exempted from tax. But the advantage of a family office is this is succession planning. When I say succession planning, the money is kept in a company. So anything happens to me, automatically the money, the children can continue to run the family office and carry on. Through the will, if the children are going to get the benefit, the shares can be executed to the children. Because that's what I mean, the shares of the ultimate beneficial owner who has passed away can be passed on to the children as per the will. Now I want to tell you the difference between a will, why people are not going into the will and family office. Family office, you can start anytime, even when you are alive, and you are going to live for another 20 years, and you are going to manage your money. But a will come to execution only after your demise. Now you know the subtle difference between writing a will and passing on the wealth and creating a family office, building up our empire, managing your money globally is most advantageous for you. That's the reason why most of the jurisdictions which are going to talk about it are encouraging you to have a family office and to manage your money. Very interestingly, a lot of people want to specialize in family office. They start going into all these institutions to get the certification courses to provide professional advice to these things. So if a country is planning to have, like Sri Lanka, when I went to talk, I spoke to the tax officials, I spoke to the government. If they are planning to implement that, not only the regulation has to change, you have to educate the lawyers, accountants, bookkeepers, everybody to be capable to carry out the family office work, professional work. So what has happened in Singapore, there is a wealth management institute was started in Singapore by the two institutions where they manage the sovereign funds. The two institutions are Temasek and GIC, Government Investment Corporation, GIC is called, and Temasek. They have started the Wealth Management Institute. And the Wealth Management Institute started training more than 6,500 lawyers with the help of Law Society. Start training the lawyers to make what are the documents required, how to look after governance and philanthropic activities, how you can assist, and then succession planning, all those regulations in managing and running a family office is being taught to them so that they are well prepared to face the requirement of the community when the family office start coming in. There are more than 2,000 family offices have been set up in Singapore over the years. Why people want to have a family office in Singapore? What is the advantage of having a family office in Singapore? Which I'm going to run through my transparencies. Before that, I brief you. Political stability, infrastructure, very talented professional people available, legal system, rule of law. Changi Airport is the best airport in the world where connectivity is throughout the world. A lot of this family office business, usually the ultimate beneficial owner, that means the guy who has made the wealth, would like to be in the country where you want to manage his money also, where the family office is also established. So if the guy is going to want to stay in Singapore and manage his family office, it's more convenient for him to be in Singapore and manage the family office. For that, what the government has come up with is there is one program already there in Singapore for long years, even prior to the family office concept has come in. It's called Global Investors Program. So previously, traders used to come, people with a lot of money used to come to establish the trading operation in Singapore by making investments and promising to keep the investment in the company for a minimum period of 5 years. That means you should not transfer, close, or liquidate the company and keep the money for 5 years. Today, a guy to get on the trading route is $20 million. Through the family office route, you should invest a minimum sum of $200 million to apply for permanent resident status in Singapore under the Global Investors Program. Don't get confused. I said 20 million is required to start a family office where you are not seeking a permission to stay in Singapore. You can get an employment pass. That means you have to say that I'm going to be an employee of the company and look after my investment, ask for an employment pass. Like any other professional seeking an employment pass, you can seek an employment pass in Singapore. If you want to get like a green card EB-5 scheme in the US, where investments will enable you to get a permanent resident status in Singapore, investment category, to get a family office person, ultimate beneficial owner, is $200 million of minimum investment of funds you come into assets under management will enable you to get the permanent resident status. Another interesting thing which I want to tell you is this. If you're going to, the regulations which Monetary Authority has come in are this. In order to, when you have $200 million, as I was telling you, you might have put it 50 million in US shares, another 20-30 million dollars in China shares, 10 million in Indian shares, few properties in Dubai. But usually Singapore doesn't encourage properties in the structure of your investments. That's why when I was talking about the third chapter about challenges facing family office, I'll tell you what are the hurdles, some of the investments which are not qualified for calculating of your tax benefit of zero rate. If it is non-qualifying income, if the family office is going to get, which some of the investments which are not approved, you will be taxed at the normal tax rate. So they have a qualifying income and non-qualifying income will come into force. So the second condition, this is what usually typically an investment will be. So do not assume that if you set up a family office in Singapore, all the money, asset under management is all invested in Singapore, because people want to tend to invest globally. There are no restrictions of money coming into Singapore and money going out of Singapore. There is no capital restrictions like in India, Sri Lanka, China, and few countries in the world, Taiwan, Korea, and all those things. So what is advantage is that probably Taiwan and Korea may not be restrictions are there, but they tax global income. Coming back to the issue, so you are getting tax exemption for all these investments which you make. That's the purpose of a family office, as I was telling you. That's one of the advantages for building up a family office in Singapore. I also told you what are the advantages of Singapore, what is the greatness in Singapore, where people want to. So if the ultimate beneficial owner is going to settle down in Singapore, you will have lead a good family life. You will have a good infrastructure, connectivity to global one, rule of the law, political stability, which all I told you earlier. Also, if you want to send the children to school, all international schools are available. And in EQ, they always say, they always talk about Singapore is one of the top 5 in the world. Taiwan, Korea, Singapore, China are all above 180 level of IQ is possible. So you are living in a country with great IQ. Most of the millionaires in the world are living in Singapore. Don't feel I'm trying to convince you to come to Singapore, become a millionaire. It is not easy. Doing business and making money, they always say how to make your first million. Making a second million may be easy. The first million may be the difficult. But this is not the topic of the day. Going to my topic. When I was talking about private banks, the world famous private bank is UBS, Union Bank of Singapore. When you are talking about Union Bank of Singapore, they have come out with family office report annually. That means family office report 2023, 2024, 2025, after the end of 26, they will come out with 2026. What is important is that if you go and read the report, you can download the report and read the report. You can understand what is family office, how they invest, where they invest, what they think. They always try to, from the report, what I've studied, some of the statistics I've included, I will show it to you later. More than 25% of the family office, they want to invest in alternative investments, which I was talking about earlier. What are the alternative investments? One more restriction, I don't say restriction, one more regulation what Singapore government has come out with. after this incident has taken place in Singapore, what is that incident? In 2023, there was a huge money laundering case amounting to $3 billion, 11 to 12 of them, holding different passport from Turkey, Cambodia, and various countries have landed in Singapore, established various investments in properties, jewelry, cars, luxury cars, and nearly $3 billion were invested by them, and two of them got also family office license. After making all the inquiries and searches, the anti-money laundering department has come out with the $3 billion of crime. So they confiscated the money, prosecuted all of them, sent to prison, and after they come to the prison, they banned them from Singapore and sent them out of Singapore, and they cannot enter Singapore again. In that situation, after that, they thought that we have to tighten the KYC requirements. So a lot of new regulations have come in. One of that is that all family offices going to establish in Singapore, once you establish, you immediately have to open a bank account, not only bank account in Singapore to operate for your business, you should have a private bank account open with one of the private bankers established in Singapore. So what is the responsibility of doing the KYC is left to the private bankers so that the family office affairs are looked after by the private bankers, so the KYC is done. That means if you're going to have a $200 million, they will go through the records and information provided to them to satisfy that nothing is ill-gotten and all money is genuinely with hard work and made and invested in Singapore. The private bank requirements is an added requirement started coming after 2023, after they discovered the $3 billion money laundering case in Singapore. Now, so what is the issue if the private bank is going to come in for a $200 million company? I have explained to you earlier, when you ask a private bank to make any investments for you, they charge 25 points for the investments which they are going to make on your behalf. If you are going to ask them to sell any investments, they are going to charge 25 points. They're going to charge you, if for $200 million, 40 points on annual custodian fee. And if you're going to borrow money from them, in addition, on a margin basis, they will be borrowing in US dollars or any other currency. On that, also, they add some points to get added interest will be charged to you. But do not worry about it. It will be, if their cost of funds is 80 points, they will add another 50, 60 points. So that's also another source of income. Altogether, on an annual basis, you will be paying 1 to 1.5% of your net worth towards the charges to a private banker. There are two sections in the Income Tax Act in Singapore that was not started for family office, but family office is also used those two sections. That's section 13O and 13U. The primarily 13O and section 13U was inbuilt into the tax section for fund management companies. Previously, funds were managed by trust, unit trust, or funds are created in Singapore or outside Singapore, Mauritius, BVI, Bahamas, or Luxembourg. And then what has happened is these funds are managed also in Singapore, for which the tax exemptions are claimed by the fund managers who are licensed fund managers in Singapore. Fund managers are licensed, it's called CMS license, is issued by the government. Most of the countries issued for fund managers are licensed under the Monetary Authority regulations. The same way in Singapore also, if you're going to create funds and the funds are to be exempted from tax, 13O and 13O sections are used. The same way, the family office, when Monetary Authority issues the tax exemption certificate, it is issued under 13O for you to get a tax exemption status for family office. Today in Singapore, when I was talking about challenges, I will touch on that. What are the restrictions in the family office investments? What I want to touch upon is that the family office, when I was talking about the regulations, is one, the minimum sum I was talking about, $20 million in Singapore, other jurisdictions are different sum. Second one is you should have investment professionals. You see, usually single family office, they call it. Single family office means in one family where the children and the children are coming in as the family office is called single family office. Typically, your own funds you're going to manage, so you don't need a fund manager, licensed fund manager to manage it. What you have to do is there is no other regulation except going to monetary authority to get a tax exemption. There is no other license is required. You have formed two companies. One company will manage asset under management, the $200 million. The second company is the management company, called a management fees by getting into an agreement with the first company. And then the second company is not tax exempt, only the first company is given the tax exemption because that only gets a management fee from the first company to manage that. But what they want is that the second company, they should have two managing professionals. One can be within the family. The second one should be an outsider. You can employ a person in Singapore who has knowledge of investment professionals, who has got knowledge to be with you to do that. Or you can even start training some of the polytechnic graduates, which is acceptable by the Monetary Authority of Singapore. One more advantage I want to tell you about VCC here before I move on to the other things. So in 2023, when the money laundering case was there, the government started immediately tightening up other regulations also. They come out with Corporate Service Providers Act. What do you mean by Corporate Service Providers Act? Corporate service providers are there throughout the world. They study the corporate secretarial courses, set up companies to provide corporate secretarial services. They act company secretaries, listed companies, non-listed companies. They carry out all corporate secretarial work. In Singapore, they come out of the act with the intention of not only regulating all the activities of a corporate secretarial services, they also inbuilt the anti-money laundering and countering financing of terrorism and proliferation of funding for proliferation activities. So what is happening today is corporate secretarial practice. We are going to have, you have to get a license from MACRA, which is the register of companies, to set up your corporate secretarial practice, whereby they are controlling if any foreigner is going to come to Singapore to set up a company, either even for a family office. They have to go through the process of finding out. Otherwise, the responsibility falls on the corporate service provider because he has to do the KYC to satisfy himself to accept a foreigner as their client. When it comes to real estate agents, they also added provisions whereby if a real estate agent is going to get you a property or going even to rent out a property, they have the right to ask questions, so source of funds to enable you to purchase the property. One of the client was calling me, Mohan, my property is there for 10 years. He's a foreigner. He's holding a property in Singapore. He starts saying, I'm holding a property. I'm holding it for 10 years. I want to ask my broker to rent out. The guy comes and asks me source of my funds for buying the property. Then I told him the regulation have come, money laundering regulations, where it is also the service providers like property agents also have the right to question you to find out the source of funds in doing the job. Another interesting thing I want to tell you, after the private bankers have been brought in to open an account, suppose if you are a new client and want to establish a family office, then after you incorporate, immediately you have to go to a private banker to establish an account with them, which takes 3 to 6 months because they will do the due diligence on your company, which KYC compliance they do, and then open the account, and then you go to Monetary Authority to request for tax exemption. Now today what has happened is private bankers, if they have already had 500 clients, which is 10 years old and 20 years old, they are now outsourcing the job of doing the KYC because they may not have done the KYC to the expectations of the person today. So they should not be full of the law today. So what they're doing now is they're engaging the accountants, professional accountants, mainly Big Four, to outsource the job to them to take up a job to go through all the 500 clients to find out the funds, how they are legitimately brought in to make investments and become part of the clients of these private bankers. This is very interesting thing which I want to make you know, because when the private bankers, a lot of relationship managers or my good friends, when they start calling me and talking to me to get information about the clients, I can clearly understand these regulations of the new money laundering cases, which have made them to do the KYC compliance. They are doing all these exercises to satisfy that their clients are above board and money is sought in the legal way to make all these investments. Now I go into the slides so that you can understand my presentation. When I was talking about Singapore, these are the topic I would like to cover. Very interesting thing. I was talking about VCC. I will not complete the VCC. I will complete that and go into the presentation. I was also talking about funds. I was talking to you unit trust. I was talking to you about funds which are created in other parts of the world and then brought to Singapore. That's the old method of doing it. Then Luxembourg started with the concept of variable capital companies. In Singapore, they enacted a law, Variable Capital Companies Act. You can think what it is different from Normal Companies Act. The concept of Variable Capital Companies Act is to accept funds from public and then make investments. So when you are going, you can choose your own investments with your own funding. It becomes SFO, single family office, no license is required. But when it comes to a VCC, Variable Capital Companies Act, and establish a company, always the company in Singapore, if you're going to establish a VCC company, it should end up with VCC. Suppose if Morgan want to start a VCC, I have to call it as Morgan Capital VCC. Means I'm going to accept people's money from various parts of the world and start making investments on their behalf and try to get a better return and get my return towards in the form of my management fees. For this type of VCC, you need certainly a license holder who's a fund manager who holds a CMS license in Singapore. So I cannot form a VCC without appointing, getting an agreement and understanding with a CMS license fund management company who come into place into my company at the time of making my application for a VCC and get the license. Again, the VCC, when it is incorporated, it is the duty of the fund manager to do the compliance work. That is the KYC work and the compliance work. If it is outsourced, then you have to find out the outsourced man has done the job properly so that ultimately the compliance work is looked after. So the lawyers have got the same duty to do the KYC, because if any of the family office or any individual from overseas come to a lawyer to purchase a property on their behalf, they also have to do the compliance work of KYC to see that all the professionals under the different act are complying with the regulation, to see that they comply with all the KYC requirements. Now, when I was talking about VCC, now VCC will have sub-funds. What I mean is it will have an umbrella fund and a sub-fund. So VCC is have a separate act. Under the VCC Act, you can have umbrella fund and sub-funds. When I talk about sub-funds, suppose if I create one sub-fund, say pharma sub-fund, means I pick up all the pharma investments where they want to invest in startup or meditech or pharma related companies. The second fund I can start for electronic industry. So I can call electronic sub-fund, collect pool of the money, start making them to invest in those activities. When people are in, even family office can come to me to invest to a sub-fund, and if they are keen to do in a pharma company, if they are keen to do in an electronic company, if they are keen to do on an AI related companies, where AI related, now so many companies are involved in AI related activities, artificial intelligence. So I can create an AI sub-fund, attract money and pass on, they make the investments and give the return. Whenever I want to close any sub-fund, when my objective of creating the sub-fund is over and all the people are satisfied, if I collect 50 million to invest in an AI fund I invest and get $60 million after 3 years or 4 years, I can close the sub fund. So there is a lot of work is coming for liquidators of closing the sub fund of a VCC because of the VCC Act has come in. So if a person is going to as a liquidator for a VCC sub fund, he has to comply with the regulation of VCC Act. He has to comply with the Companies Act regulations. That there is one more act is there, which is Insolvency, Restructuring and Dissolution Act, because that's for the dissolution purposes or winding bus purposes. So by complying these three acts, a liquidator can liquidate a sub fund. Now, why I am talking about a VCC and a sub fund is DBS Private Bank in Singapore has started a company called DBS Foundry VCC and created till today 28 sub funds. What is these 28 sub funds are? These 28 sub funds for each family office people. So if Morgan, instead of starting Morgan Family Office Private Limited, I can take the $200 million and go to DBS Bank and say, I'm not going to have my company, I'm not going to have my management company, second company. I give it to VCC, DBS Bank, which has started DBS Foundry VCC. They will take the $200 million, started Mohan Sub Fund. So the Mohan Sub Fund will have a separate registration. They will take my $200 million. They manage the money with my discretion and then pass on the benefits to me, which is also tax exempted because the entire VCC is got tax exempted from Monetary Authority of Singapore. We intern through the tax department. Actually, the tax department issued the tax exemption, which is governed by Monetary Authority of Singapore. So, is it also possible without you setting up a separate company? You can go to DBS Bank, ask them to create a sub fund for you, and then they can manage it for you. Only thing is you have to pay the custodian fee for the managing your sub fund to DBS Bank. Now I move on to the rest of the slide so that if anything I am going to miss, I can catch up on that. The definition of a family, which says that single ancestor, lineal descendants, spouses, ex-spouses, adopted children. The key rule is the SFO should be managed by the family people. You should not ask someone else to manage. You should not take someone's money. You should manage only your family money. That's most important. I already explained to you about $200 million and how a family office has been set up. You can engage lawyers, financial advisors. Either it can be in-house or it can be outsourced also for a particular job to be performed. Family office, how they have lived over the years, first generation, second generation, third generation, like that. And also I talked about family office charter also. I mean, the rules and regulation, governance to manage a family office. And the amount of wealth they manage, assets under management, which I was talking about. I was telling you between 200 million to $1 billion. More than billion was very, very less. Then who manage the family office? Like UOB in investment committee, UOB in the board, UOB being the chairman, ultimate beneficial owner. What I mean by UOB is the ultimate beneficial owner. I talked about the Wealth Management Institute also to you, which trains all the professionals to understand how their family office work has to be done. This is the number of family offices which are established in Singapore. I was telling you two companies. One is to keep the $200 million. Second one is to manage the family office. What are the advantages of this? All this presentation, I'll put it into my website, which is nsbcglobal.pro. You can go into that and watch, including my presentation, which also go into YouTube later on. As I was telling you, two companies. You can also have a holding company on the top if it is required. You can also, some people want to have a family trust, but I don't recommend to have a family trust unless there are difficulties, currency restrictions. I mean, you can't bring back the money to India, then this type of people put up a family trust outside and then start trying to manage the money. It should be a non-discretionary trust. If it is discretionary trust, then you can close the trust anytime. I was talking about the two sections under which the tax exemptions are provided. There is also minimum amount to be spent in the family office, like $200,000, which if you pay the management fees to the second company, it will be covered in this money. And I was also talking about the CDR is capital deployment requirement. That means 10 million or 10% of that should be invested in Singapore. It means listed companies shares in Singapore or any private companies in the form of equity or debt or funds and funds of funds in HR established in Singapore. It also covers climate related, that is environmental type of companies. As I was talking about, Law Society has joined with Wealth Management Institute to train the lawyers in Singapore. The minimum spending under the 13.1 and 13.2, which I explained to you earlier. The local investments which I was talking. This is little complicated. I will tell you when the difficulties, challenges facing family office. I don't recommend multi-family office because multi-family office, then you need a fund manager, then you are doing business for others. You are not managing your own funds. It should be a SFO, single family office. I was talking about the DBS Bank. DBS Bank has started DBS multi-family office, Foundry, VCC, where they take a sub-fund and take a family office work. These are the very notable people who moved their set up family offices here and moved into Singapore. They are not moved to Singapore to live. I mean, they have formed the family offices in Singapore. Dyson, who manufactures the electronic products, Mukesh Ambani, and then the co-founder of Google, Dalio family office, and co-founder of Facebook, and Mohan Tolaram is very famous in Africa, making noodles in a big way in Africa, has also set up a family office in Singapore. These are the notable figures. There are a lot of people. There are 2,000 family offices in Singapore, what I was talking about. More than 20,000 family offices globally established. I was also talking to you about getting the permanent resident status, DIP, Global Investment Program, $200 million. Now I come to the second part of it, which is about family offices in other countries. I will touch upon slightly about all these things because I'm crossing my limit of 45 minutes. So I try to rush up quickly to make it faster to see that you get to understand about other jurisdictions. Dubai, as you know, RAK is Ras Al Khaimah, where you set up a family office. You can also put up a family office in Dubai International Financial Center, Dubai Multi Commodities Center, Dubai World Trade Center. All of them have got a family office set up, which is possible. Abu Dhabi also have started providing family office facilities. The minimum sum required is not mentioned, but it is better than like in Hong Kong, they put Hong Kong dollars 240 million. And it comes to Singapore, it comes to roughly divided by 5, which is 48 million Singapore dollars. Because every 5 Hong Kong dollars is 1 Singapore dollar. And in Malaysia also, they have started ringgit 30 million, which is equivalent to 10 million Singapore dollars. And UK, it is US dollar 50 million. So it is possible to establish family offices in other jurisdictions. Before you establish, you have to look into all the rest of it. When I come to the last one about challenges facing family offices, I will talk to you what are the difficulties in other jurisdictions. I was telling you about qualified income and non-qualified income. In Dubai, they tax you now. They come out with a corporate tax of 9%. Dubai doesn't have property tax for properties. Dubai doesn't have income tax. Dubai doesn't have capital gains tax. Dubai doesn't have inheritance tax. Okay. When I come to challenges, I will tell you some of the issues what you have to look after when you are going to establish something in Dubai. In Dubai, they are talking about US dollar $10 million minimum sum required to set up a family office. And also the salary which you have to pay to engage the investment professionals. Minimum salary required to appoint an investment professional. We should also look into what are the double taxation agreement with various countries when you're going to establish a family office. So then please go through all those things carefully. What are the rules and regulations to decide whether the location, the jurisdiction is suitable to you to establish a family office. Some of them also moving to settle down in Dubai because Dubai is fast developing cities in the world. So the possibilities of setting up a family office in Dubai is also very good. Hong Kong, the attraction is you are close to China. Most of the activities that China is taking place in Hong Kong. And Hong Kong is also as good as Singapore in connectivity, rule of law, and all those regulations. More than 400 family offices have been set up. And you have to, I mean, most of the people from mainland China are going to Hong Kong to establish family offices in China. I compared between Singapore and Hong Kong. You can read all these things. Forest City. Actually, this is gateway to Singapore, JB in Malaysia. They have started in the Forest City Special Economic Zone. There, you can also set up a family office. Even they give you concession for transferring. There is no stamp duty for transferring assets and properties into the company on the initial stage to set up the family office. You all remember when the REIT started in most of the countries, REITs is nothing but managing properties in the world. It may be a residential property or it may be a shop, it may be a commercial giant, or it may be now even for data centers, REITs have come. So all these things, if you are outside a REIT, you start a company, you start a trust management company. When you transfer the property for the first time into the REITs, when the countries started the REITs, they give a stamp duty exemption to transfer the ownership of the property into the REITs. The same way, when you're going to set up a family office, they also provided the tax exemption for the first time transfer to a family office, because family office is a new concept. In India, GIFT City has started. A lot of NRIs or NRI and OCIs are trying to establish themselves. What is the advantage? What I've noticed in the GIFT City is that if you are having a portfolio investment, you can invest through the GIFT City so that the capital gains tax is not there. Short-term or long-term capital gains is not there. They have not started taking it seriously of giving family office tax exemption. One or two cases have been approved. Narayan Murthy of Infosys applied and taken it. I've not heard about they are moving towards family office. I do not know what are the hurdles in them in not granting family offices. I'm not meaning the resident Indian moving and setting up a family office because it's not possible unless they remit the money under the LRS scheme of $250,000 per year and establishing a family office. But they can look for NRIs and OCIs in other foreigners establishing a family office in the GIFT City. I do not know what the direction they are planning to have. I met all of them. They have come to Singapore to discuss on this matter. But today, it is not reckoned with other family office cities in the world. But what I can advise all the NRIs is that if you, all the banks like ICICI, HDFC Bank, even Kotak Mahindra and Motilal Oswal, the stockbroking firms have established offices. Minimum sum is 150,000 US dollars. If you want to play in Indian jazz, you can open portfolio account with them. So whatever the profit you make on the share sale, either short term or capital, long term, capital gain tax is exempted from that. So that's the advice I can give it to NRIs. London family office also, they look for $50 million. Family office would be not subject to income tax or corporate tax. It's been worded wrongly. Would not be subject to income tax or corporate tax because it's a family office and you are seeking the exemption for that. Switzerland, you know pretty well, high standard of confidentiality, client data, well established audit practices, robust AML KYC reporting. So they are compliance of OECD alignment and requirements. So it is good to be in Switzerland also. And if you want to move in, the ultimate beneficiary want to move in and live in any of the Swiss provinces, it's also possible. They call canton, not provinces. In China, they call provinces. In Switzerland, they call canton. Then you can go and settle down in one of the cantons. USA, you know pretty well, Delaware, Florida, Wyoming has all got the family offices concept. Now, challenges faced by the family office. What are the challenges? The challenges are, if you look at Singapore, the challenge is that they have not included metals, that gold, silver, digital assets, which they call digital gold, means all bitcoins and various other types of 4,400 different types of digital assets are available. You can buy and sell. It's now parallelly, a lot of people are investing in that. That's not forming part of your assets, qualified assets. Also, the family business, which you are running it separately, the capital can go through the family business also. There are a lot of restrictions on that, which that transparency was talking about. Is also, they are looking into that to relax it in Singapore to include all these things in future. But till today, all these things are not qualified. It will be subject to tax. So they will segregate between exempted from tax and not subject to tax situation. The second one is family office due diligence. I was talked about the $3 billion money laundering case. So that is always an hindrance. And then the next one is about BEPS 2, base erosion and profit shifting. It's a child of OECD, Organization of Economic Cooperation and Development. They are representing more than 160 countries for various reasons, economic benefit. They look into the problems of various countries. One of that is also on finance, which is tax and tax-related matters. In that, they come with BEPS 1 and BEPS 2. In BEPS 2, they talk about BEPS 1, they talk about country-by-country reporting. So multinational corporations having above 750 million euro, if they operate in more jurisdictions, they have to report country-by-country reporting, whereby each country can understand from the report whether they're paying fair share of taxes in those countries. In order to avoid and take the benefit of parking the money in some other countries where the taxes are low, like the American companies are parking all the intellectual properties in Ireland, where the Ireland tax is 12.5%. And Microsoft too, all the Googles and everybody, the licensed IP is parked in Ireland. They sign contracts throughout the world with Ireland companies, whereby the tax is not paid in US, but now the US has come out with what are the profits made by the headquartered companies in other parts of the world. Also, they started charging a tax. So that is not, I mean, it may be conducive when compared to the tax payable back in the US. So what OECD has come out with under BEPS 2 is 15% corporate tax throughout all the countries, so that no multinational takes advantage of any country and moving and establishing an operation in that country. So what is happening is the concessions and benefits offered by Singapore and other countries they have to provide an alternative benefit to them to attract foreign investment into that country, which is the situation for all countries in the world because of the OECD coming out with BIP2, which is each country should tax 15%. Now they come out with a top-up tax. So if you are charging less than 15%, the top-up tax will come in for multinational corporations. So that the countries, other countries are not benefited where they are taxing less than 15%, an equal level playing field for all the countries in the world. That's a concept what OECD has conceived and implemented to various countries. So each country has got their own regulations to look into the BEPS too. Now, I will go through those transparencies and then come to a conclusion. When you're opening a private bank account, now they are talking about you have to give the tax residency of which country you have been taxed and provide all the tax information. OECD also talked about exchange of information, that is common reporting standard, under which you report, each country reports to other countries and to share the information about the tax paid by the respective people they come across. Under the common reporting standard, the exchange of information has also come. Each tax department has opened the exchange of information department within the tax department. So if income tax authorities in India write to Singapore authorities and request for information, it is a duty for Singapore tax authorities to gather the information and pass it on to them under the common reporting standard, country by country reporting. Country by country reporting by multinational is for BIP1. What I'm talking about is the common reporting standard enables each country, and also they have amended the tax treaties to include exchange of information, whereby the tax paid or the information about the tax evasion is passed on between the informations are gathered and passed on to different countries. Very important thing when I was talking about Dubai, I was talking about International Financial Center and so many centers. What has happened is very good thing is now in Dubai, Sharia law will apply. So if you have to make a will and file the will, register the will with DIFC, which is Dubai International Financial Center. So if you are going to die, your properties which are located in Dubai, your bank account and your investment in Dubai, or property investment in Dubai are not divided on a Sharia law basis. Your will is followed and they comply with you because you already registered a will and you have declared that you are not a Muslim and you are not going to become a Muslim in the declaration. In that situation, you will be allowed to utilize your money or the investments for a deceased person's estate to divide as per the will in the parent company. Another interesting thing which I want to remind you is if you're going to, what is the advantage of a family office than investing in your personal name? If you're going to invest in countries like UK and US, there are inheritance tax of 40%. So in the event you put, say, 50 million in a US share, and if you're going to die, they will deduct 40% and remit the balance of money to you because inheritance tax in the US and UK is 40%. So if you're going to invest through a family office where a company is making the investment, company is not going to die, the succession is going to be there, the shares are going to be transferred. So the value of the shares are important. So the value of the shares are not there. The company only invested in US, so you will be escaping the inheritance tax in US or UK. Now the last slide is about impact of BIP2. I talked about domestic top-up tax. I talk about KYC. I talk about at length. You can read all these things in my website. Now the last one is about migration. Why migration is taking place? If you look at migration in and migration out, most of the people are going settle down in Dubai because I told you, you buy properties, there is no property tax, there is no income tax, personal income tax, corporate tax is 9%. which has come into place. There is also a VAT of 5% in Dubai if you do business. There is no inheritance tax. And Sharia law to overcome, I told you to file the will with DIFC. A lot of people are leaving United States, Italy, Switzerland, Saudi Arabia. Sorry. They are migrating into all these countries. Millionaires lost is United Kingdom, China, India, South Korea, Russia. Why they are leaving United Kingdom is that previously the non-dom provision was there. What is non-dom provision? That means any foreigners living, even if he's holding a British passport, living in London, whatever the income earned abroad, you only pay £30,000 totally towards your income earned outside UK throughout the world. So they classify you as non-dom as per the tax provision. The new Labour government, after removing in the election, they amended that to say the non-dom provision is removed, whereby whatever the income you made outside, the $30,000 headline tax is removed. So you have to pay, the income has to be included and you have to pay. So the Lakshmi Mittal, the richest Indian who is living in Dubai, in London, have to move his residence to Dubai. So that's the reason why the maximum number of people have moved out of United Kingdom. People also moved out of China because of the tax regulation and currency restrictions. India, you know about it. South Korea and Russia. The in is United Arab Emirates, Italy, Switzerland, Saudi Arabia, Singapore, because they don't tax globally. And they give you tax exemption for family office. There is no inheritance tax in all these countries. With that note, I conclude. I feel I've not missed anything. If I missed anything, when you are going to come to me in the question and answer, I tried to cover it up in that. Thank you for patience and listening to me more than 1 hour and 15 minutes. I'm grateful to all of you. Thank you. Give me a minute. I'll join you for your question and answer. Meanwhile, you start sending me the questions. Let me have my drink. I read the first question. Can SFO have operating business in addition to investment business? For example, hire investment professionals who will manage the investments. I can see that. What is that? Investments of the company other than depend on other banks. You can listen. In a SFO, you can manage your money. What is important is that suppose you have 200 million set aside in an SFO, you also have a running family business that is generating income. That is subject to tax. I was telling you under the third category, challenges facing family office is where, and few of the professionals are asking the Singapore government to allow the family office returns also to be part of the family office. But in short, if I tell you, in Singapore, any dividend, you pay the corporate tax in a company, and if any company receives the dividend, both resident and non-resident and companies receiving in Singapore are all exempt from tax. So the dividend is not taxed again. So in your tax computation, if a company invests in another company, the holding company can take it as tax exempt dividend. The same case for resident people. For non-residents also, there is no subsequent tax is payable. So they are now trying to, the budget is going to come in Singapore on 12th of February. We do not know what are the surprises about family office investment made into their own companies, their own family business companies. Thank you, Sriram. Very good coverage. Thank you, Sriram. I'm grateful to you for listening from the beginning. You are the first one to join. I'm always grateful to you. How important is property tax structuring from day one? and what risk arises if this is not done correctly. Property tax is not a great thing, but it's still a savings. In Dubai doesn't do property tax. Sorry. How important is proper tax structuring? Sorry. How important is proper tax structuring from day one, and what risk arise if this is not done correctly? See, what happens is, I was telling you $200 million, you get a return of 10%. You'll end up having an income of $20 million. I'll give a beautiful example. In Singapore, if you pay 17% tax, you'll end up paying $3.4 million. It itself is a good savings for you, but compared to India and other jurisdictions in the world. So if you plan in advance, put a family office and do it, it's good for you to have a tax planning. It's always good for you to plan in advance. What are the operational costs often underestimate? No, in the family office, if you run yourself, I told you very clearly, after the Singapore new regulation from 2023 to have a private banker, you add along with your cost. If your cost is 2% of asset under management, say for example, you manage 200 million, 2% is $4 million. That is for paying your lawyers and accountants and other professionals outsourced to people to get the professional advice, plus add 1 more % for the private bankers cost of managing of funds and advising you for that, which will be another $2 million. So it becomes 3% for you to manage. If you get a return of 10%, your net return will be 7%. Beyond tax incentives, what are the practical, regulatory, and substance requirements that families often underestimate when setting up a Singapore family office? See, what is important is how you make your investment. If you make your investment wisely, you better read the report which I was telling you about the UBS Bank. It gives you, they go on research like 1,500 families globally. They divide between Asia, Europe, and America, where they invest, how they invest, what the preference of investment, and what are the types of philanthropic activities they do. So that is a guidelines for you. Secondly, there is no foolproof investments in the world. So it is your judgment, your passion, your capability, and your beautiful judgment. Some people do too much of calculations. I don't do like that. When I want to make an investment, I read an article about NVIDIA. NVIDIA is the #1 company in the world. You know what is the capitalization of NVIDIA? Which is equivalent to the NVIDIA's capital today is nearly $4 to $5 trillion, which is equivalent to the economy of India. A company in the US, a listed company in the US, is equivalent to the 4th largest economy in the world. So what I did is, and they are manufacturing or designing chips for AI. Immediately I put my money. I've not gone through my homework by going into PE ratio, who is the management, macro level of looking into top down, bottom down. I've not looked into all those things. I take a decision. Surprisingly, the share has gone 3 times already. So the gut feeling is important in all the decision making of your investments. Excellent coverage of family office scenario all over the world. Fantastic. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for the presentation. A lot of information. What should family office prioritize in their first year of operating in Singapore? Okay. When I was talking about 200 million, how do you park? Where you park? What is the return you are getting? Is all the investments are safe? And see, what happens is don't make annual balance sheet, make a monthly balance sheet, monitor all your investments. Not all of your investments are good investments. If you make a bad investment, try to recover, change the investments quickly. My philosophy is this, I'll make you understand. I do not know whether you follow my philosophy. I have good number of your shares, a good number of Indian shares. My philosophy is on 31st March, I don't want to see the profit every year. If my shares have gone up by 15% or 20%, I don't want to see unimaginable profit of 15% or 20%. I will encash 25% of my shares. Have some policy like that. My broker used to tell me, no, all these shares are very good shares. I said, please sell it, put the money back into my account. I will start reinvesting again. That means you are realizing the profit and seeing the profit. Don't be happy that Nirvana shares is going up and up and up again. Encash it. I'm not asking you to sell 100%, sell 25%. I have a fixed date. My date is 31st March. Indian shares, I tell my broker 20% you are selling. You choose the shares. So if you have some principles, discipline, passion, you will win the race. Wonderful clarity. Thank you. I still cherish my days as SICCI director under your chairmanship. Thank you, brother. GIFT City rooted equity investment, you mentioned full tax exemption from capital gains tax. Please confirm. And what about dividend? Dividend is also exempt from tax because it is a special economic zone. I have a lot of ideas for GIFT City to follow, like Singapore, Hong Kong, Switzerland, and various countries. You go to, now when I was a chairman of the Chamber of Commerce, I took a delegation to GIFT City. In the notebook, I wrote 25 to 30 points which they should start implementing day one to become a global financial center. I'm ready to advise today also what are the things, a lot of ideas I have, what all I wrote still in my memory and my mind, and I can update it also. So possibilities to grow is there. One thing what I noticed in the Indian mentality is they always want to wear a belt. They will only change the regulation. Instead of wearing on the fifth hole, they want to wear it on the second hole. They don't think that throw away the belt. That is Mohan. So you remove the regulation, make it easy. India is trying their best to become ease of doing business. It was in 123, moved up to 60. I wish that it should come faster and above. Your concept of using the belt in the fifth hole to second hole, sorry, from second hole to fifth hole, because make it easier. That is not good. You think of removing the regulation like other countries. Then immediately they will say other countries are small, India is big. I agree with you. But when it comes to an economic zone like GIFT City, you should be a player like other tax-free zones in the world. You should match them and get the business like what they are going to do, what they are doing. If Sri Lanka wants to do it, they can do it. They have to do it. So that they also become one of the family office heavens in the world. It's a beautiful place to live. They have a fantastic tourism, fantastic, beautiful spots. They can attract a lot of nomads. Do you know what is nomad? Now today, everything is done in the internet. Now professionals, IT professionals sit everywhere in the world and they report to the head office. Their salary is credited to their account. They should start attracting. All these countries should start. Thailand is doing. Spain is doing. Portugal is doing. So the mindset has to change. AI has come now. I went to banks and so many places. They still write in the notebook. I start thinking, AI has come. Start changing your mindset. Sorry, I'm not giving another talk. Approximately how much percentage would be charged by DBS Bank to use the VCC set instead of setting up your own setup? I've not talked to them. The director is a good friend of mine. The director and 3-4 directors, they are on my head to get clients for them. I told them we work together to bring in business for you in the form of sub-fund, all these family officers. Certainly, I'll check up and come back to you in an email. I'm not aware. Certainly, it should be 2-3% under the AUM. Because if you are going to charge more, as a client, you can bargain with them. If you are giving 500 million, you can bargain. If you are giving a minimum $20 million, you not have a bargaining position, right? When you go and buy an apartment in Dubai, if you buy 50 apartments in a building, you can ask for 15% discount. If you buy one apartment, can you ask for 15% discount? You can't. So money is the strength. So if you have a good game to play, you can bargain. Most of the private bankers' charges, as you was talking about purchase, sale, they will charge 1% to you. If you go and bargain and say, I'm going to be your best customer, I will invest more money, they come down to 25 points for buying and 25 points for selling. For custodial fee, asset under management, They charge 40 points. You go and bargain with them and say, no, charge 20 points. They will, exceptional case, they will tell you, don't tell other customers, I will charge you 20 points because you are a very important customer to them and a good customer to them. This is all bargaining game in this world. This is the financial world. You can bargain. Nothing is casted in stone. From your experience, what kind of governance and decision-making structure does Mars actually expect a family office to have on ground? Brother, come to me. I will do everything for you. What do you want? Listen. You have to outsource to professionals to handle things. Don't try to do everything yourself. It is not cleaning the car. It is a very professional job. Or changing the bulb in the house. If you have to put a wire, you call the electrician. Don't try to lay the lines yourself because you do not know which is a live wire, which current comes and which wire current doesn't come, which is the earth wire. Sorry. I'm happy to take up your job. I think who was asking that question? Wonderful, Mohanji, and explain. Sorry. What are the most common complaints, mistakes you see new family office make? It's a new concept. I've not seen how people do mistakes, but we are all there to advise them from day one. If you have the right advisor like us, we give the right advice and the best advice with our experience. So I always have the consultant along with you to do the job. How do you see emerging risk of global family office migration trends? Example, family office moving from Singapore to Dubai. See, if you want to live in Singapore, you feel environment is good for you to live, infrastructure is good for you, your children are going to school. When you are a family man, you can't take decision yourself. You have to call your family and children to make them to sit and then take a decision. I want to migrate to Dubai. Kishaini, you are not married. You don't have children. You have to sit with your husband and children, ask this question, whether we can migrate to Dubai, whether Dubai is better. Can I ask you something interesting to all of you? When I attended family office conferences, I asked some interesting questions to them. Can I tell you one of that interesting question? Can a person have more than one location, 4 or 5 family offices? Nothing wrong. If you have 200 million, you park 50 million in a Singapore family office, another 40 million in a Dubai office, you feel that it is better for you to manage. Only thing is managing all these things. If you manage under one company or manage under 4 companies in 4 different locations, then if the experience teaches you that it's better to manage in that style, do it. If you feel that experience is not going to helpful, then consolidate and keep it in one family office. This question I asked a lot of people. The second interesting question I asked a lot of people who talked about the lawyers, about will, whether you have to write, if usually the NRIs and a lot of rich people with $700, $800 million, they have global investments. They have assets globally. Do they have to write each destination a will? If they have parked money in Dubai, do you have to write a will for Dubai? Parked money in India in various locations? Do you have companies? Do you have a bill for India, for Singapore, or for Hong Kong, like that? I'm also studying on that because I'm now helping clients to have the bill also. What my advice to you is, India regulation is away from other destinations. Usually what happens, if you write a will in Singapore, you always cover global assets, all your assets located everywhere. Usually people don't mention where the assets are located, because after you write the will, you live for another 15 years and accumulate wealth. It may be situated everywhere in the world. So you always say what ratio in which you divide. If you don't have children, you say everything goes to the wife, 100% goes to the wife. If you have wife and 2 children, you say that 50% goes to wife and 25% and 25%. If wife predeceases, goes 50% to 2 kids. So do not mention the individual assets in the will. So what happens is, the Singapore will, after you go and take a probate from the High Court, you start resealing in other countries. What I mean by resealing is, if you have investments in India, go to High Court in in India, all these courts recognizes the Singapore courts, probate is issued, they reseal the probate, allow you to take all the estate properties to the division to the children. But if you're going to write a separate bill for India to the India requirements, India will look after that. Singapore will, you have to specifically say it covers all countries in the world except India, so that the clarity is there. So what is important is that everywhere your common sense and clarity is very, very important. How do Singapore compare with other jurisdictions like Switzerland, Dubai, or the US in terms of succession planning, asset protection, and long-term regulatory stability? You have to study my transparency, and I think you have listened to my talk. I talked about inheritance tax in 2 jurisdictions. I talked about inheritance in 2 jurisdictions, which is UK and US. But if you're holding shares, that situation doesn't come. But you have to look into the other regulations also there, because most of these countries, when people want to avoid by setting up family offices, they will have a deemed income. India also has got the concept of deemed income and taxation. So you have to look into, even you hold shares, they treat it as deemed income and tax you. So please consult the respective tax people before you try to knock down to your destination to establish your family office. If there is no other question, can I conclude? And I'm grateful to all of you. Thank you for joining. And we will hope to meet you again in our next topic. Thank you.